Welcome to Nüart Gallery. We're pleased to open this next duo exhibition, Confluence, featuring the artwork of Willy Richardson and Joseph Ostraff. Today we're fortunate to have the assistant curator of the New Mexico Museum of Art, Katie Doyle, here as the moderator, and I'll tell you a little bit about Katie. Katie Doyle was born and raised near Columbus, Ohio, and lived and worked in Chicago for 10 years before moving to Albuquerque in 2017. She has served in multiple arts organizations across the Midwest and New Mexico, some of which include the Art Institute of Chicago, Site Santa Fe, Bahrain National Museum, and the state of New Mexico. She currently works as assistant curator at the New Mexico Museum of Art. Welcome so much, Katie, for being here.
Well, if you all, I've been introduced, so if you all want to introduce yourselves, what's your name? What's your favorite color? What do you enjoy doing in your spare time?
My name is Willy Richardson. I was born in Santa Fe, New Mexico. That's how I got the name Bo. My mom was a hippie. And this was a grocery store where I used to come after school in elementary school and get candy. So I'm familiar with this room right here. I went to UT Austin for undergrad and Pratt Institute for graduate school, actually with a colleague of Joe's. Just figuring that out now. And it's a beautiful day to be here. Favorite color is blue.
Yeah, excellent, good choice. You can tell, actually.
My name is Joe Ostraff. I'm originally from Southern California. I was born and raised. I did my undergraduate work at Brigham Young University, Utah, and I graduated at the University of Washington, Seattle. My wife's here with me, Linda. We collaborate a lot together, so I want to point that out, that we've been doing that for 20 years. We'll talk more about that if anyone's interested later, but yeah, I agree, it's a beautiful day. And, I'm glad to be here with all of you.
I do want to hear more about that because I noticed on your website that you have a shared website, and I was very curious about that.
Well, we can talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, well, maybe we should just start with that, because my first question for you all was really about the title of the exhibition, Confluence, and this act of two bodies of water kind of coming together and creating their own sort of ecosystem. In some ways, there are a lot of confluences across the world where you can find species that you can't find anywhere else, just because of the two bodies of water mixing together. And so I've been thinking a lot about that and about this work. And Willy Bo and I had a conversation over the phone prior to this, where you had mentioned feeling pleasantly and unexpectedly surprised about how your work looks together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so Juan, who is, I think, driving to Albuquerque and rushing back, he really puts his heart into the gallery, and he's an artist himself, and when he curates a show, he treats it like he's working with a painting. And coming up with the title is actually a pretty big process usually. And so he asked me for ideas, and also Connor, who just left the gallery to move to Seattle. He's going to work at the Seattle Museum. And so he was emailing me questions, and then I was looking over Connor's shoulder with Joe's email, and I was actually really surprised because I could have written the email that he wrote, which had a lot to do with navigation and finding one's way, and what does it mean to work, to be found, which often requires being lost and not knowing what you're doing. So there was a back and forth, there was a conversation, and then Juan kind of swooped in and chose the title Confluence. And I think that as far as my work goes, one of the things that came up is when I make paintings, they're really meant to end up in a context. So that means someone's home or a public space, and it's meant to influence that space. So when the paintings are just by themselves, there's a little bit of too much feedback loop and it can get a little loud, which is one of the reasons I really don't like trying to figure out Instagram page, because you've got these boxes and all the paintings are supposed to stack on top of each other. It's totally insane. So I avoid pictures of paintings. So for me personally, to have my work in relation to Joe's is very meaningful, and especially because we're approaching things maybe from a similar place, but you can see that we're really working in different modalities, let's say. And also Confluence is just, it's a very kind of magical word to me. It's a significant thing. There's a Sanskrit word sangam, which means confluence, that when we think about two bodies of water, that we can put a name on the river. We can call one the Ganges and one the Yamuna, and when they come together, there's something else. But actually, when we put a name on the river itself, we're actually talking about particles which are in constant motion. So there's something that, and Juan and I were talking about this last night, as we were putting up this painting. He called me in at 7 p.m. last night to say, we need one more painting, it's not working, go to your studio.
Surprise.
We need an anchor, and we were talking about how there's something about it that's in motion. So that's also this element too. There's a flow.
Yeah. Joseph, would you like to speak a little bit, or do you feel like that's
I thought
like,
that was really well
sorry,
said.
that was really
That's
fast. You
beautiful.
want to share some words? But I think about the act of coming together and also building on like this collaborative practice that can happen without actually happening, but then also collaboration that is active in the studio. And I understand that you collaborate with your partner.
I do, and then we in turn work with other groups quite often. It's been about a 30-year ride.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of the things we talked about, the metaphor, they fit right into relationships. And as I got older and my knees I played volleyball a lot, and my knees are shot and I have no hair. I'm past worrying about some things. And so just acknowledging that I see something and I have ideas, but every time I do something, it confirms all the things I don't know and how blind I really am. And I'm willing to embrace that in a way that as a younger person, drawing little surfers in tubes for my friends, you'd never talk that way. It was all about being confident. And so that's important to us. Melinda and I have been on this constant journey, just acknowledging we came together with our own baggage. As you know, like it's two cultures when you get married, and it's been 42 years. But every time we meet people, we know we're coming up against very different ideas, and we seek that. We want to be altered and question whatever baggage we've come forward with to this day. And so each piece of work I do, it documents a response to new ideas I've been confronted with, or old ideas I've had to change my thinking about. So I know I'm kind of getting older, but it's like I feel that my body falling apart, that my brain is actually more flexible now than it ever was before, in the sense that I'm really willing and excited to be challenged by the place I am and by the people I meet, and learn learn from them. So the work is really a documentation of events that are changing our lives. And Melinda and I, she's an ethnobotanist, has a PhD from the University of Victoria. And so plants and doing things together. I was a translator for her during her research in the islands, and then she would help me with art, and then over the years that relationship has now become studio shared and actually working together quite extensively. So even though these pieces are kind of mine, anything that works about it is because Melinda has pulled me back from the edge and said, let's talk about why you're using that color. It's really awful. And so we, whether it's one person or the others, we are now, well, we have 6 kids. We've collaborated a lot. So, that idea of coming together, we were in Denmark this last summer, a year ago, and at the tip of Denmark, 2 seas meet. And I was thinking about Europe, and they don't mix.
Yeah.
You can see the 2 sides, and you go, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, we just stared at it because the 2 colors, they run for hundreds of yards, and there are 2 different bodies of water. But they are coming together in some way, and it's just fascinating.
So I feel like we're coming on like a lot of like, I don't know, chunky, meaty bits. So I'm trying to pull out the chunks and maybe look at them a little bit. But you said something about like, the edge and like the edges of things. So like where do you see that edge in your work? And that's more a question for both of you. I think ideally the edge is always moving, right? But where there is something about edges in both of these bodies of work that are in the gallery right now. I'd be curious to hear you talk a little bit about that.
Go for it.
Okay. Well, I'm very strongly influenced by modernism, modernity, the idea of automatism. So we have automatic writing, automatic painting, mining the unconscious, things coming to the surface that we're not aware of, that we want to understand. Could also be working with shadow side, except embracing the shadow. So that leaves a lot of room for deep, dark, ugly secrets to reveal themselves. And I know that you're looking at my paintings, how could that possibly be? But sometimes a painting will come out and it's like god-awful 80s colors, but the painting wants to be that. And so it's embracing what's coming my way. So there's that side of it, and then there's also minimalism, which was, and we all think of minimalism differently, but I'll just kind of define it, was a reaction against abstract expressionism because we had materials and the artist and then this so-called other, and I put it in quotes, and it's this kind of mysterious thing that happens when the artists meet the materials and this magic happens, right? Well, the other side of that is that it's a power structure, somewhat reminiscent of, say, a church, or you've got people in the know, people who are telling you that this other is relevant. So you have like Clement Greenberg saying, this is the other, this is real, this is legitimate, and then you have those in the know that back that up. And so minimalism, some would even call it like a Marxist ideology of leveling the playing field, getting down to just the materials and the artist. And that's a whole other type of a boundary, because that can include, that's more on the like aesthetic or formal qualities. And so for me personally, the paintings can go all the way to just a flat surface and a single color with different layers of color behind it, or thinking about even literally what are the, physically what do the edges of the painting look like? How do I want it and the edge? It's so vast, And sometimes people ask me if I'm ever getting bored of painting these vertical strokes, and I have to say it's not that I created some limitation to hold on to, it's that I'm just so excited and there's so much to explore. I'm just getting started is how I feel. So yes, it's a total moving target. And it's exciting and sometimes scary, because what if I decide to just make paintings and it's just a single color flat surface, and what if that's what I decide to do? It's a departure. There's so many departures to take.
I mean, what if it was?
But
it would still be your work.
Absolutely, and I have total permission to do it. There's nobody saying don't do it. Not the gallery, not myself, not my dad. He's also a painter. Not my wife. So it's total freedom, actually.
What do you think?
Well, it's interesting to talk about, Willy mentioned formalism and modernism, and I've gotten to a point where I've been through all of them. Not that I was there when some of these happened. Like Clive Bell is older than me, and so is Greenberg. But I was taught, I was fed on their writings and on their ideas, along with Bauhaus. So as a young student, I had this foundation based upon those kind of things. You either chose to embrace it or use it as a foil or to go against. And then as an early educator, postmodernism was a big topic, and I did a lot of reading there. And, I was never really happy about the end of the people that had theories about postmodernism. A lot of them just ended up with very sad endings. I thought, well, I'm glad I'm not that smart. Because look what happens when you actually think too hard.
You jump off the building.
Yeah, but I found myself living at this moment now where you said the word permissions, and I thought that was a trigger for me, because it's a wonder to live today as an artist. I have permission to dip all the way back and go all the way. Like I was in Italy last summer and saw Giotto's Arena Chapel and lost the oxygen in my lungs. I just stopped, and I'd seen it in books and I loved his work, but I saw it in person, and it was one of the top 4 art experiences in my whole life. And that's over here. And then I can go all the way to postmodernism, and I can move anywhere in between, and I can recreate my ideas. And so I hate to say this, because I mean, we're in a gallery where they're trying to sell my art, but it's really a shell of what's going on in my brain, and the excitement I have with constant growth and change, and the excitement of being illuminated by the people and by places. So the work is frozen and stuck after it's done, and I acknowledge that. So the edge for me is that I go and have those experiences, and then these are the parameters. The parameters create these responses, but that's just their documentation of that, and it's not enough for me. That's why we collaborate a lot, because how we feel about each other as people is more important to me than the work I do, the physical work I do. And I'm not by any means criticizing the intensive art practice and the value of it in the work. I'm just saying I come to this as a different creature. Back in '93, I was a finalist for a fellowship competition, and the paintings that were in the show were collaborations between me and my children, the 4 older children. And so I went that night to the opening, and they announced 2 out of the 9 were going to receive money, and just cash. You could do whatever you want with it. And they named a photographer is the first winter, and my little 7-year-old daughter, who would help me with these paintings, groaned like, oh, like that. And then they named me, and she yelled out in front of this whole group of people in a very, all in black, you know, just a very serious event. She goes, we won. And that was a pivotal moment in my life when I thought, I could win and walk out this door and it'd be gone. But the we in that has never left me, ever. And so I've been chasing that kind of feeling all my life since then. Since that, my daughter did that, it brought to the point what was true to me, what was important for my path. And so I was telling Melinda, though, that the paintings aren't loaded, they're not illustrations of location or ideas, they are responses in parameters. And once I'm in the studio making them, now that's formal. Now I'm just trying to make it work. Does that make sense to y'all? I'm not thinking, no, that's symbolizing this and that means that. It's like, no, the parameters were set and now I'm making a body of work and all of it, physically, the edges, the relationship between shapes. If I don't like it, or if Melinda doesn't like it, we gotta do something about it.
Democracy. We like a democratic process.
I'm better for it.
Yeah. So I guess, and that said too, I want to talk a little bit about like flow. 'Cause yeah, like
Yes.
confluence, flow. And I learned a new word in therapy this week, flow state. I guess it's 2 words, but yeah, the flow state. And we were talking about, you know, what happens when you're making or when you're so like deeply engaged that, you know, you like lose sense of time and place. And there is sort of like this vastness in the work that you both create. This idea of like losing oneself in color or in edges or ordered chaos of these like vertical or horizontal intersections of line and color and form. So where do you see your work sitting with regard to the flow state and to the act of mindful painting?
Right. Good question.
Spicy one. you can take your time. You can also say like skip. No comment.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
That's my favorite topic.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think that I like where Joe's going with this. By the way, you can call me Willy or Will. The
Okay.
Willy bow, it's like
Okay,
the
thanks.
opposite.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Cool. Good.
Willy bow is like a font. It's written.
Yes.
So, but I'm Willy or Will or.
Mm-hmm.
So this acknowledging that we're a part of a whole, and this openness and vulnerability that Joe is talking about, I think is very significant. That idea of working in one studio, and we have, in our culture, we have the idea of muses. Somehow these muses arrive. So we can't really make them show up. We can't hit them over the head and drag them into the studio.
You could.
But we can somehow work on things that will help them arrive. And so my dad and I were very good friends. We ski together. He's a painter. We don't paint together. This is, when you say collaboration, it's so interesting to me because I think of painting as going into the cave and painting very alone. So alone that I even leave the room, and then coming out with this relic of an event that took place. And to me, paint is such an incredible technology. I think that going to graduate school in New York in the late 90s, when those in the know had decided painting is dead, and it wasn't the first time. It comes and goes being dead all the time. You know, it's a conversation. Somehow, when the camera came out, that was another opportunity to say painting is dead. Well, now we can just take a picture. So I think even for me, just to establish why paint, when we have video and new forms and conceptual art and all these possibilities, paint is inherently this alone cave thing where it's the opposite of being up on stage, it's the opposite of having a conversation, except for with the materials and with myself, and then of course, then we go down to what is myself. And so myself being the tip of the iceberg, and below that is, let's say, knowledge and awareness of art history, or knowledge and awareness of culture, knowledge and awareness of being part of some kind of continuum, being part of a bigger conversation. And I think that the thing about paint is that you engage in an action, and that action it's so interesting. So in skiing, I could say we could get into a flow state, right? But with painting, the painting, I don't know how to say it, but the painting is the skiing. So the final result is also the thing that I'm doing. So I'm making a painting, but that painting is also the thing too. So skiing is not something I would share. Here's my skiing, everybody look at it. But somehow painting is. And so again, I don't make the flow state happen. I don't conjure it, but hopefully the muses will find me working in my studio. And one of the reasons I work in such a limited structure is because it takes away all the process of having to come up with a good idea. I don't have to really figure anything out. I get to do the parts that I only want to do, which is working with colors and how colors come together, working with mediums and how they come together. And I love the edges. It's almost like, we're talking about high Renaissance and you have to paint Mother Mary, baby Jesus. It's a triangular structure, but the artists are just completely getting lost in that road. So for me, it's just, I get to just paint the road all day long, right? So the thing I get to do is the thing that I want to do. And it's this structure, which, I don't know how else to say it, but the intention of the structure, this is why it's so important to me, but the intention of the structure is to enter into that flow state. It's really a call and response. And the painting outside the window there, I had all kinds of plans for that painting. That was let's call it, I did value study and the very first layers, and then I had all these plans of what was going to happen next. I came in and you can see, you can't see it, but you have to go outside. But that painting is all acrylic, except for this one brush stroke in oil, which means it's going to be that first next layer. And I do one brush stroke, and it was like it painted itself. The painting was done. I mean, it came together. And as opposed to this painting, which that's probably, if you look on the back, it probably says something like 2017 to 2023 or something like that. And that painting was a lot, and sometimes those are the more fun ones because then I can spend hours, like pulling my hair out and deliberating over it. But yes, to get to the state of flow, this flow state, that's the goal. And again, to share it is the goal. So thank you for the question.
Yeah. What is your flow state?
Well, I was just thinking
Also,
about it.
you don't have to respond to the question if there's anything that anyone says here that sets off a light bulb that you want to talk about. That's fine.
No, this is good. I love listening to Will. It was great. I think it connects to Lynn and I will make food sometimes and share with people in our town. We live in a small town with 1,200 people. And so when someone's kids are ill or something, everybody knows it. And so we'll sit in the kitchen and maybe we'll make sourdough bread. She does that. Or maybe I'll make spaghetti or beef stroganoff or something to take to the family. And by making this food, it's the flow state for me is I know where it's going. And I want to do my best so it tastes good, so this little herd of people will have joy. And if it's not tasting good, it's pretty tragic. And I just feel the same way about art. I'm in the studio, but my goal is to share space, time, and oxygen with people. So if this work doesn't challenge us to have any sort of dialogue, then it's a bad meal. And we're not excited anymore. But if it provides any kind of flavor like that metaphor, then we're going to start that dialogue, and that's the endorphin for me, is to have a positive exchange with other people. So I knew that if I dropped the quality of my effort, then I'm dropping the quality of my dialogue with people. But like I said, when I was a kid, I was doing surfers in tubed waves for my Laguna Beach friends. And I just ran out of gas as a young artist on that level. It wasn't getting that kind of feedback. This has kept me going. I'm 66, you know, and I still want to keep going. I was excited more than ever, so it's because of that meal we're sharing together, metaphorically speaking. So that's where the rush is for me.
Yeah.
And the flow.
Awesome. So yeah, I think like there's something very interesting in that, like losing the quality of your effort, and then that like quality and flow kind of like come together in the work too, is something that I'm hearing, and I'm interested maybe in talking a little bit about time and like loss of the sense of time, and also like depicting the passing of time in this act of layering that you guys both use in your work, but in very different ways. And I wrote a bunch of other things down because I was looking more closely. I was able to look more closely at the work here just now. So I grabbed my notebook and started like scribbling. But I'm just, can I just like list a bunch of bullets?
Yeah.
Because they're not fully formed sentences.
I have bullets too. I have so many
bullets.
This dialogue thing is.
Yeah. Well, and there's like the act of layering and strata as it relates to time. I was thinking a lot about dazzle camouflage, which it's.
You define dazzle
Yeah. I guess like the modern version, or our version of dazzle camouflage, because dazzle camouflage was something that came around in the age of modernism. It was a way of painting battleships in World War I so that they could not be detected by camera, and so they're covered in these like wacky patterns that kind of just like confuse the eye to the point where like it disappears in the ocean, or with the ocean. And so there's this question of depth perception and flattening of space and time that's happening, and I think about the locations of some of the places in your paintings too, and how those places are specific to time, or markers of time or of an event. So I guess that's kind of what I got, and I wrote down test patterns, which is something that I feel has died with my generation, but the boop that happens at like 4 in the morning, and it's just a bunch of bars of color on the screen, and that weird time, the physical time when that would happen, and feeling this timelessness at like 4 a.m. Yeah. Anyway.
I have the same question too about location for you.
Yeah.
They're titled where you collect the information and then you're making them in your studio.
Actually, I do a body of work, collages, works on paper, gouache, mixed media while I'm there, and then these eventually come out of that process.
Is that in a notebook or sheets of paper, which are also works of
Both,
art?
yeah.
Okay. Do you show those?
On occasion, in a different context than in the gallery. I was thinking about that. Of course, I think all artists go through times when they're losing track of time. But for me, I don't think the question we're talking about here is. For me, the layers are a very specific reference to accelerated reference to human layers of time. Like, and from urban places especially, where like I get stuck in the subways in New York just staring at those walls with like 7, 8, 10 layers of paper, and I just want to pull them back and see what else is there, and they just tell me. And like you go to Seattle, and up on Capitol Hill they have these poles with posters from rock bands performances that look like Christmas trees. They have so many posters on them, and it just talks about effort and human presence and life. And so in the paintings, yeah, the layers definitely are me tipping a hat to humanity in this ongoing story. I live in Utah, and I think New Mexico has the same kind of a little bit of baggage, I'd say, because we have 9 active native tribes within our state. I live on Ute land. It was originally Ute land, so stopping enough and thinking about layers, I can't rewrite history, but I can acknowledge I'm a layer on top of someone else's layer. So a lot of these things are almost, I don't have a word for it, but they're me going through a process of being grateful and connected to, I'm just another layer. I'm not the first, and I'm not the last. I'm just another layer. And whatever happens here, it's going to go away, but the layers are there. And, so that time and response, and I don't know how heavy you want me to get. Berlin was a heavy place.
It's that place in particular is a very heavy place. Yes.
And so I don't want to ruin. I think Juan would, if he hears me say this, he'll just groan.
He just walked in.
Oh, Juan, okay.
Go away.
Because I've had people ask me about the Berlin pieces, and because they're formally, I think, working quite well. But my father's Jewish. He's passed away, but his people came from mostly Russia in 1910 during the Russian purge of Jews. So he came here, but a lot of our ancestors in Ukraine, Poland didn't go away, and they were caught up in the World War II story. And so for me going there and just thinking about them and their story, and then realizing that they're not the only story. Human suffering is part of our history as a globe, and it's a sad one. And so it stops me. I went back. I was in Berlin for a month, and I just go back regularly and respond to that place. But then the paintings kind of take on a little bit of life embedded in them, because I know my dad's people, and they loved living. And I didn't want to think about the memorial just as a moment of the worst moment of history for them, but also tip my hat to their life, that they lived, and they were happy people, and they were sad people, and they were grumpy, and they loved their kids, and they yelled at their kids, and they loved food, and they didn't like food, and they were just people living their lives. And so a lot of the paintings that reference that have both me respecting a story and also acknowledging life at the same time.
That's beautiful.
Sorry, Juan, if that comes heavy. It's such a beautiful day to be.
Well, it's a different type of beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'm almost a little embarrassed because I'd almost say my paintings are somehow escapist in relation to, it's more like we're already trudging through. It's almost like we're all toiling. That's the human condition. And I just want to break.
Same.
And so I
That's why I fly fish. That's my break.
it's more like singing at the top of my lungs in the shower kind of thing. It's really, but I mean, I'm having to kind of think on the spot here because it's really, and also it's touching just that you say that we actually share ancestry, so it's, there is for sure something about being tethered to the ground. So after September 11th, so in September 12th, and we were living in New York at the time, and it was a horrible, tragic experience, I went into my studio and I worked on a really good painting. So I don't want to say that I'm a total escapist. You know, this shadow side or the darkness or the toiling that we all do as humans, and inevitability of facing our own immortality. I mean, yeah. So yes, it's there, but it all just turns into like good fertilizer. You know, it's not the story isn't in there. As far as the layering goes, which is another asking good questions.
Really
Because
like
these are
asking
things these are things I think about, right?
Yeah.
So it's really helpful. To me, another wonderful thing about painting is that I can come in one day, feel a certain way, and lay down a layer, and then I come in another day and feel a different way and lay down a layer. And it's kind of similar to laying down colors, where two colors on top of each other will create a myriad of other colors. And there's an emotional aspect to that too. And there's a technical aspect to that. It's totally exciting. But in some ways, that might be a way of dealing with the loneliness going into the cave as an artist. That in fact it's me, and then it's this other me that comes in, and then another me. And so maybe there's this teamwork that gets to happen too. And then of course the painting, when it's done, and it sets out and now it's this whole other type of teamwork, which I love too, because there really is a feedback loop. And I found that as I've had this fortunate opportunity to have paintings where people look at them, and Viviette's here actually, who really offered me that opportunity a few years ago, you know, to show my work. And there's a feedback loop that starts to happen, and it doesn't have to be that somebody comes up to me and says, "Oh, I was looking at your painting, it did this and this." It's more subtle. I don't even know if anybody has to say anything. It might just be the fact that they're looking at it, that the feedback loop comes back into my studio, and I call that another layer. These paintings are made to last 300 years before anybody needs to, you know, come in and fix them up again. So there is definitely letting it go, and I would call that another layer of letting it go. It's a little bit like a litter of puppies, and I hug them all, and people comfort them, and they're gonna have their own life now. But that somehow there is this, they're out there like, they inform each other. And I don't see my paintings so much as each one individually as much as part of a continuum.
I don't just go to Berlin. Yeah, it's like the Norway pieces are just a complete celebration of an amazing place and people. So I think I would maybe need to get in a cave for a long time if I only dealt with the harder stories I read into.
And I don't only paint on September 12th.
Yes. No, you know, as you're talking, the thing I thought about was, to me, I don't feel like we're any different in the sense that there is a tone of gratitude and intentional behavior on your part, and a kindness and a civility that acknowledges that we have been afforded this opportunity to be artists because of other people, our ancestors, all kinds of sacrifice and effort and support, and you clearly understand that. So I think holding an attitude of being aware of what's been given to us and being grateful for it doesn't mean you have to always deal with the heavier side of things. I think it's legit. I do.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like we're like getting to. Oh, you're fine. No sorries. Unless you were gonna say something.
Oh, no. No, I was just thinking.
Okay. Woo. Ah. Well, and yeah, we were talking about revolution history. I feel like we're jumping all over. It's great. So time, history, truth, like all of these things become like relevant, right? And also relative. So I guess like, what about timelessness? What about like anti-time? Because I think it kind of comes back to that dazzle camouflage moment where the like timelessness that abstraction sort of lends itself to. If you want to talk a little bit about that, but also we don't have to.
No, well, I thought that you're bringing it up, and I thought that was in that first question about time also.
Yeah.
That there is this little matrix ripple where it's like, boop, and then there's some ripple that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So that might be part of this. Again, it's not escapism, but there is some kind of a trying to go into the cave, enter into some sort of a state of a flow state. And then somehow trying to come out of that and put my head back on my shoulders and go out and like, I remember when it would be time to pick up my daughter from school and to, like looking at the clock and oh no, and like trying to, okay, and then wash the brushes and get in the car and driving and really just trying to pull myself back together. And this is why sometimes that feedback loop of a situation where there's a bigger conversation can be so helpful, because I really have no idea what I'm doing in my studio. And of course, I outlined how I'm trying to get to that place. But to try to talk about it and to kind of have a conversation around it, it makes more sense in this kind of situation where we have the paintings across from each other. And then we can do our best with our words to point to it a little bit. But really, I mean, I keep looking at specific things and
what specific things?
So there's a tidiness and neatness to your work, and yet I can go up to a corner and look at it, and it's you're not the tape king. Like you're not trapped by you're not, I know that there's pleasure in your taping. Like you're taping when you want to, and there's these areas that are scratched up, messy. Like it wouldn't matter. Don't want to say it the wrong way, but it wouldn't matter if you accidentally scratched the bottom right corner of that painting there. Like it would.
No, when I travel, I don't worry a lot.
So you
When I
kind of
transport them.
throw them in the back of the truck. This is like my dad who takes his painting and he throws it in the back of the truck, and he takes another painting and throws it on top. Delivers it. And I'm just like freaking out.
Cats out of the bag.
But that's really exciting to me, that you have that freedom.
Well, and there's also, I wrote something down here about mark making and or mark taking, depending if we're taping, tape king. I like that. I wrote that down in my notes. I'm gonna keep that one in my pocket for later. But I think it's really interesting that you're both observing like agency with like a certain amount of like reverence as well in your work. The agency of human traces in the landscape, the agency of color and layering as truth or truth telling, but also like the residue that comes from both like the metaphorical residue and like the physical residue that you can see on the edges. We have 5 minutes. Oh yikes! You got 5 minutes. That's it. That's all. That's yeah. 5 minutes. Maybe we can do some questions after that. Yeah.
Well, you know, I've been painting for over 50 years now, so I actually have gone through decades without using a single piece of tape.
Yeah.
This is just the way these feel right now for me, how they, you know, it works. But who knows what will happen tomorrow? I'm not really sure. I honestly don't think much about how long my paintings will last. I feel like I would be crushed by the pressure of thinking that I'm making something that's going to be. I don't know. I think some things I do have a longer life than other things. I just don't know when I'm doing it, and so I kind of hide that weakness that I'm not that good at actually by making a lot. So I make a lot of paintings, and half of them probably should never be seen by anybody, ever. And it's okay, but I'm just saying that I don't want to be slowed down by my shortcomings. I would have stopped, I couldn't function in that kind of thing, so I don't think about it that way. I only think about, the only timeless thing I think about is my relationship with my family and my friends. That will outlast everything I'm trying to do. And if it's adding to that, it's good. The day it's not copacetic, I'll stop doing it. Because when we were first married and living in Seattle, we were starving to death, kind of. We didn't have very good jobs, and I was working 3 jobs and cleaning a Target at 4 in the morning. I mean, just doing everything to make a go of it and trying to paint at night. And I told Melinda, I said, you know, I have a master's at fine arts. I could get a job, like a regular job. And she just said, oh, stop whining. And that was like that was permission for me to just go for the rest of my life. And I'll never forget that moment. But again, it was about us, not about anything else.
Thoughts on agency, thoughts on permission or anti-permission?
I mean, I don't know if this is directly related to the question, but I also had a moment like that where I had a master's degree and
From Pratt, with my friend.
Yeah, and actually when we were in Utah, I tried to reach out to him. We started talking, but it didn't work out, but maybe next time. So I'm in Brooklyn, taking a bus to my studio, which is a 45-minute bus ride, through a horrible, dangerous neighborhood. And it's, you know, again, it's 3 in the afternoon, I have a master's degree, and I'm on the bus, and I'm not making up a story. The other people on the bus were all crackheads. And one guy was talking about to the other guy how the chemtrails are influencing and the government and they're controlling our minds, and I'm thinking, like, if you stop smoking crack, that'd be the first step towards like agency, having control over one's mind. And I get to my studio, and I used to cull more, so I used to do more like works on paper, and it's a lot of them, and then it's like all you have to do is 50 and 3 are gonna come out amazing, right? And now I feel like for me it's more that process of the layering. So like example of that painting, which was, I don't know, but it could be 3 years of culling.
Yeah, right.
On one piece.
On one piece.
And so I paint thin so that I don't have texture, which is going to mess up the future possibilities. So I get to my studio, and there's a stack of paintings on paper, and I'm just so fed up, and I go out to the dumpster and I throw it in the trash. And I get back on the bus and I go home, and this is like probably 1999 or something like that. And so it's very early internet email days. And I turn on the computer and there's an email, and it's this website I had completely forgotten about where I had posted a couple paintings on it, and it said, like, congratulations, you sold that stack of paintings. And luckily I wasn't dramatic. I didn't like tear him and throw him in the trash. I just took the stack, like neatly put in cardboard and took the whole thing and threw it in the trash. So I took the thing out and shipped it. And it's just this, like, there's these moments where I, like it or not, I'm going to have to keep painting. And I don't have that option, you know, there's no choice. So, it's funny, I was just visiting Marietta, Patricia, her studio, and she's, is she in her 80s?
Yeah,
Is she? She's
Yeah.
very established, and we were talking about the same thing, and she says, you know what, you never get to where you go, okay, and now, you know, she'll say, there's times where I think it is, you know, like there's a lot of work sold, and success and being written up, but it's still this, it's almost like we're like farmers or something like that, and there could be a drought, yeah.
Well, that's all I got for you.
That was a great story. I think we should stop right there.
Yeah. I feel like questions from the peanut gallery. I feel like it's a really good place to end.
How are we?
How are we on time? Oh, look at that.
Not even 5 yet.
We have 3 whole minutes for questions.
The burning question is, what do you do with the paintings? Like, what is the collaboration exactly like?
Yeah, Elsa. Well, Linda? Can you answer that?
Melinda, would you like to sit in the chair?
No,
Are you sure? Okay.
I do a lot with the underpaintings, and then when it gets, you know, more developed and stuff, we work together a lot on the colors and the shapes. What does it need now, you know, or what if I try this or that? And so we do have other paintings where I actually do a little bit more involved in the actual finished product on these. I'm a secondary, I guess, on these.
Yeah, we just finished a body of work that's botanically based, and I would say, I couldn't put exact number, but I'd say more than 60-40 in our decisions about that. Playing with the ideas of plants and how they tell stories about people, how we define the meaning of a plant. Everything from funerals to casinos are using plants and flowers. But that body of work we just finished, and then that was a real, like, up to our elbows together. This one was more like she saved me, and then she has her own practice in encaustics and natural inks that where I just say maybe try that bigger or something like that. So we have different layers of collaboration counting on the situation. Is that?
Yeah.
And we still
More
like
questions, but
we
no.
like each other a lot. Sometimes she's mad at me.
So that's exactly the most, yes. So sometimes it'll be like that painting outside there where I do that perfect stroke and I'm already making the next stroke. And oh no, I blew it, and now it's not gonna hold together. So it's when the painting holds together. So that means there's these micro and macro reverberations throughout, where every single brush stroke is somehow part of that. And that means sometimes it's that just there's this one stroke and it's okay. Sometimes it's unexpected, and sometimes I got there through this, you know, trudging and getting there and planning and changing my mind and then getting there. So, but yeah, for me, when the painting is done, well, no, I was gonna say sometimes I'll take a picture of a painting through different stages, and I definitely, only with hindsight and having this camera tool, that I realized I should have left it, back at a stage before. So it's a process.
you ever feel like the painting is painting itself, or you
Oh, yeah.
orchestrating?
Oh yeah, no, I mean that painting up there, I like walked into my studio one day and it was hanging on the wall. Like I'm pretty sure I didn't even take part of it. So.
Fugue state.
Yeah, it was just there.
Does that make it different for you?
It doesn't make it a better painting.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes the ones that are really painful are also worthwhile.
Mm.
You know, so it's, and I feel like I need the painful one to get to the one that does itself.
Mm.
Oh, hit. Last two, and then halas. Yes.
So being in the flow, which you've both spoken about, is very akin to spirituality.
Mhm.
And you both feel that your work reflects your spirituality. And what is the spirituality practice that you see reflected in your work?
So in Kandinsky's book, what is it, Concerning Art and Spirituality? He never wants to find the word spirituality. And so he uses it a whole bunch and they never find it. And I found that if I were to say this is my spirituality and we didn't even define it in the first place, but also then that's going to cut off maybe somebody who might not be seeing things the same way. So I'd rather look at it like I'm holding on to the tail of the elephant and somebody else might be feeling the ear, and it's okay. But this is why I leave it with painting. So having said that, I love to ski. And I have a daily meditation practice, and I love to paint. And these are things that I don't see as really so separate from each other.
Do you have the same feeling skiing that you occasionally have painting?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's conditions coming together, so
Well, yes, and it's yourself disappearing.
yes. And then we could argue about whether or not the 10,000 hours part was necessary, because why does a child feel that? So, yes.
I'd have to say for myself that there's a whole bunch of things I don't understand or know at all. But I do have a sense of feeling inside of me that there's something bigger than me. And I can't argue with people, I can't justify it to someone else, just in my heart. And I feel an obligation to be authentically active in my life and be as civil and respectful of other people. And so my practice is to be honorable and leave the rest to sort itself out. But I hope the work is authentic enough in the sense of it. It's not perfect. It's my best effort at this point. Hopefully I'll do better next time. And that I'll treat you as kindly and respectfully as you deserve. Not just you, but all people, regardless of the situations.
And that your painting is your offering.
Yeah,
Then.
yeah. Exactly.
I think we have one more, and then we're over time. I'm sorry, guys.
This is a quick one, it's for Will. Years ago, I listened to an interview that you did with this guy from the Clark Hewlings Fund,
Oh, okay.
and you had some pretty big goals back then.
Oh, yeah.
Do you still have them?
Well, those all fell apart. So and it really looked like it was going to happen. But yeah, I wanted to basically translate my paintings, this idea of translating my paintings into the built environment. So that meant like the flooring and the wall coverings and the pillowcases. Not that it would be like an amusement park, just parts of it. Don't picture like the whole thing, right? It's only part of the whole. And I connected up with this company, Design Text, and they were perfect because they are cutting edge on eco-friendly, and they use the highest quality materials, and they print out in Belgium. I mean, it was awesome, and they said, we're looking for work just like yours. And then somehow something slowed down, the conversation slowed down. They sent me some samples and things seemed like they were gonna move, but then I would send an email and there'd be this kind of delay, and then finally she said, "I'm so sorry. I wasn't allowed to tell you this, but it was months that had gone by, but we're shutting down this department that, you know, where like you plus all the other artists are a part of it." And I was disappointed, but then the thing was, it turned out that put me back into the studio painting, and I think sometimes I just want to get off the hook of having to make a painting. And so it was back to work again, which is kind of like what you're saying. I'll give it my best. It's difficult, and I'm glad it worked out the way it did. But you know, we'll see. It's not,
Well, the other reason,
I'm ready. You know,
one of the reasons I bring it up, and I won't take too much more time, but we sat in a presentation by Mayor of Munich, the people that do the glassworks out of Germany, and I got the card of the lady that worked with one of our friends in Albuquerque at the international, the library in the international district. So they're doing some glass work there. She said, if you ever have an idea, just contact me and we can brainstorm how much it will cost and where to put it. But I
Whoa.
can see it in the subway stations and airports. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I was like,
Wouldn't it?
Should I? Yeah. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Dolly.
I hope you guys can stay. We have refreshments and talk individually with the artists. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Katie.